There is a fine line between being persistent and being perceived as needy or clingy, and we don't want that. That's why this video is going to talk about how to be persistent in the right way so that you're not perceived as desperate or clingy. If you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so that you get notified every time I release a new dating advice video for guys who want to go on more dates with the women they're really excited about. I'm Emily, founder of emlovz.com, and in 2012 I went on a 100-date experiment. And I actually learned a bunch about why men come across needy and creepy instead of persistent during that experiment. I also learned a lot about men who were too afraid to be persistent that they actually phased themselves out of going on a date. And so this video is going to talk about the difference between being persistent and being needy, and it's really a fine line. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about the persistence formula in messaging. A little bit of background: before I was a dating coach, I worked in corporate America, and I had to make cold calls and send cold emails to build the business. And what I learned from doing that for many years is what I now teach as well. And there's a fine line between being persistent and being needy, and that fine line comes down to having a formula. So the formula that I teach is that you always try 3 times before calling it quits. Can you do more than 3? Sure, go ahead. What's really important though is that you keep yourself consistent. So you're not going to send 3 messages to one girl, 1 message to the other girl, 5 messages to another. That is going to basically mess with your own mindset, because you won't have a formula that you always follow, that when you get an outlier woman who's crazy and mean and says something totally effed up, you're not going to take it personally because you always follow this formula. You've done this a million times, and you know that there's only a very small percentage of people that freak out about it. In fact, you'll probably also have women thanking you for using this formula. So what it is, I recommend you send an initial message. If you don't hear back, then you send a follow-up message, and then last but not least, you're going to send a last-ditch message. So what I would recommend, if you're using a dating app to do this formula, you send that first initial message, and I have an entire formula that I give my clients who are in my group coaching program so they know exactly what to say, how to speak to a woman in a way that really compels her to want to respond, and that part is super important. But so is persistence. And you know why? Because she may not have seen your message. In fact, most of the time, that's why a woman doesn't respond. It has nothing to do with you. It is not like you're not being annoying or needy or anything. It's just that she didn't check back on the app, or she thought she responded and didn't. This happens all the time, even with friends and family members. So don't take it personally. Being persistent is going to bring your message to the top of her queue so that she may have an opportunity to see it again if she missed it the first time. And so you can do it 3 times. You're going to send your initial message, and I would recommend using the formula that I teach in my program. Then you're going to wait for her to respond, or for 48 hours to pass. If she doesn't respond, you're going to send your FU message. That is not an F off message, that's an FU message. It stands for the follow-up message. You're going to send your follow-up FU message 48 hours after that first message was sent. That's going to bring your message to the top of the queue. Can you wait longer? Sure, but I think having a formula that is consistent, that you follow consistently, is the best bet for building your funnel. But if it's been like 72 hours, totally cool. If it's been 3 weeks, totally cool. Still follow up. There's no time that exists until you actually meet in person. If she doesn't respond to your follow-up message, then you're going to send a last-ditch message, or the LD message, I like to call it. And that is going to be sent 48 hours after the follow-up message was sent. So that is your cadence, and you're going to do, basically, if you send one on Monday, you'd send another one Wednesday, and your final message would be on Friday. Like I said, you can send more than 3. In fact, there are some sales dogs that think you should keep sending messages until you get a response. I think that's fine. For me, myself, when I was doing this in corporate America, I had a software that would show me my return on my time investment, and I never had a good return on my time investment past the 3rd message. But you do as you will, just keep it consistent. So if you decide I'm going to do 5 messages before I quit, make sure that you do that with every single girl, so you have that formula that you always follow. What that's going to do for your mindset is it's going to make you, it's going to change the way you think about messaging. Instead of being like, ooh, I'm so desperate and needy, you're going to be like, this is my process. This is my process. This is what I do. And when somebody freaks out on you and says something mean like, oh my God, you didn't get the hint, I didn't respond because I wasn't interested, you can silently tell that person to F off. Don't do it for real, because it's not really helpful. But you know that that person is just crazy and having a bad day, because this is what you always do, and most women don't have any problem with it at all. And some women are even going to say, thank you for following up. It is a really powerful tool. And also, if you think being persistent is creepy and needy, I got to tell you something. Women are hardwired to look for the guy who is persistent. Do you want to know why? Because we're all hardwired to find a man who can keep us and our offspring safe. Even if you don't want kids or you're beyond the years of having kids, we are all hardwired that way. Women are hardwired to look for a man that's not going to give up when something gets difficult. Why? Because we don't want a quitter. We don't want somebody who's afraid of being rejected. We want somebody who is not afraid to walk through the fire for us, because sometimes we're going to need a homie to walk through the fire. So that should be you. And persistence is sexy, and we're hardwired for it. So sometimes we may make it difficult on you just because we're hardwired that way. It has nothing to do with you. It's like a test. We're running a test. So you have to be persistent, or you're going to lose every time. I can guarantee it. If my boyfriend had not been persistent with me, we wouldn't be together. I definitely made it difficult in the beginning. So keep that in mind. Rewire your brain on how you think about neediness and desperation, and how you think about persistence. Persistence is sexy, and every woman wants a man who's persistent, and that's you. Something to keep you persistent and not without becoming needy is to take control over your phone. So rather than being a slave to responding to every single message that comes in on a dating app, you want to just turn your notifications off. Set a calendar reminder in your phone that you're going to go in for 30 minutes every single day and swipe and message and then respond to messages. But beyond that, don't have your notifications on, because then every time a woman responds to you, you're going to want to respond, or you're going to start thinking, ooh, am I being needy by not responding? Maybe I should wait to respond. Well, it took her 2 hours, so maybe I should wait 2 hours. Ugh, that's gross. It's game playing, and it's like, who wants to spend their life like that? Don't do it. Turn your notifications off. You're going to respond when you go in to check your messages in that 30-minute pocket of time. Or maybe you decide you want to check your messages at another time, but you're not a slave to responding whenever you get a message inbound. I would turn notifications off on everything, but that's just me. So let's talk about examples of what's needy and desperate in dating. Calling repeatedly, texting a lot, calling a lot, trying to get in touch with her any way you can. That's needy. Don't do it. She's going to respond to you when she gets your message, or you're going to send a follow-up message 48 hours after, but you're not going to keep calling her until she answers the phone, or you're not going to keep texting her until she texts you back. That is needy, and you want to look at why you're doing that. You have some desire for control, and that's not sexy. Texting her long messages is definitely more desperate and needy. You want to make sure that you have an equal give and take in the relationship. You want to avoid texting a lot anyway, because the relationship that you have on text message isn't really real. You can't hear the person, you can't see them. There's so much information we gather when we can hear a person and see them, and we hear the vocal tone and the pitch and the pacing of their voice. If you're sending huge text messages and she's sending like one word back, there's an imbalance in your communication, and that's not going to set you up for success in the future. So I would just ease off texting as much as you can. If you want to have a conversation with her, give her a phone call. Sending love letters too soon. Boy, oh boy, I know I have made this mistake. In fact, I've made all these mistakes, and that's how I know what is not good. So don't do what I have done, and do not send a love letter or tell her how much you like her or how perfect she is or how you want to be like her forever person. Don't do it. It puts her on a pedestal, makes her feel weird. The second you have this happen to you, or maybe you've had it happen to you in the past, don't you realize, like, oh yeah, when that person was super into me, I was kind of grossed out. Yeah, it happens to all of us. And you know what? We still tend to make that mistake, but get yourself, rein it in. Don't let yourself go crazy, because sometimes that happens and it's not cool, and it's definitely not attractive. And you know what? The thing is it says more about what's going on for you than it does about the person that you're like doing that to. Like, why am I so desperate to tell her how much I like her? Why do I need to tell her that she's so perfect? Is it because I'm afraid of something happening? Am I afraid that I'll never find someone like that good? Is it because I don't believe I'm worth something better? Why am I trying so hard to convey my interest? I think the love letter thing is cool maybe after you've had sex a couple times and it's clear there's mutual interest and it's 50-50. But if you're doing it in the beginning, you are setting yourself up for failure, and it's just not a comfortable thing. It's not a good look. You want to really spend time in introspection, examining why you're doing that, why you feel the need to do that, because really what's happening is something is going on within you, and it's probably fear-based and scarcity-based. Having an anxious attachment style is something that tends to make us really needy and clingy. It goes back to how our primary caregivers were with us in childhood, and also is influenced by our early romantic relationships and life experiences. Anxious attachment is kind of a form of being clingy or needy or wanting to always be, in control of a situation. You want to be careful. You can take free quizzes online to see what your attachment style is. That is super, super helpful. About 25% of the population has an anxious attachment style, so they get clingy and needy, and maybe people have told you that before. If you've heard it before, or you've thought maybe you were getting a little clingy or needy, take a free test online, figure out what your attachment style is. And the cool thing is, even though attachment style is stable, it can be changed. So if you have an anxious attachment style because of how you were brought up and your life experiences, you can change that into a more secure attachment by becoming aware of the patterns. So if you're like, ooh, I want to write a love letter, ooh, I want to tell this person how perfect they are and how much I love them and I want to be I want to marry them. Take a minute, breathe, drink some water, chill. Maybe book a session with me at emlovz.com/book, or a member of my team to talk it out before you blow it up, because guess what? I've blown it up so many times and I want to save you from that fate. But learn more about your attachment style. Read the book Attached, which is like my #1 most recommended book, and learn more about why that's happening and how you can start to shift it. Don't use annoying language in your texts. Don't say things like, why haven't you responded to me, or blah, blah, blah. Like, nobody really wants to receive that message, and no one wants to say anything about it, because what it's saying is you're insecure. And so instead of getting mad about it, why don't you spend time on your own? You could journal, you could just think it out, you could talk into your phone in a voice memo app to talk through what's going on. Why am I so frustrated that she didn't respond? What does this mean to me? The fact that she didn't respond, why am I taking it so personally? And you don't want to call that behavior out. Now that we figured out some ways that you might be scaring women off and how to stop doing that, let's talk a little bit about good text messages that you can send and ways that you can be perceived as confident and not needy or clingy at all. But if this video is helping, make sure to like it, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment in the comments below. So when you're messaging a woman, it is okay and actually quite sexy to express your wants and needs. So rather than say, if you want to go on a date with me, or when are you available, which is really passive, try using commanding language like, I want to take you on a date. Ooh, that's sexy. You know why? Because it means that you are not afraid of rejection. If she rejects you, no big deal. I want to take you on a date is super sexy, commanding, and masculine. It's always good to express your wants. It doesn't mean that you're going to act on it if she doesn't feel the same way, but instead of being passive and saying, if you want to, and making her the man, you're the man by saying what you want. You can also send a text message like, I want to see what you're like in real life. That's a good segue into a TDL or a date invitation, and it's direct and to the point. One of the most annoying things you can do that is kind of clingy and just annoying is to not be direct with your intentions. A woman does not want to have to guess what you want. Just be direct. It's really about clear communication. I think we've gotten to this point in society where we just want to say, we want to be vague because we're afraid of rejection. It is much sexier to just say, this is what I want. Would you like to do that with me? I want to see what you look like in person. I want to see what you're like in person. I want to take you on a date. Do you want to go? It's a lot more confident and sexy than being passive and vague and unclear with your intentions. Saying things like, I want to see if we click in real life, or I want to see what you're like in real life. All of this is like really direct, and it gets to the point. And you're also not saying like, I think you're so great and I want to take you on a date because you're so perfect. That would be like desperate and kind of weird. But if you say, I want to see if we click, now it's like you haven't decided how you feel. You just want to see if you would feel something for her if you met her in person. And that is a lot less pressure for the woman. You seem different than other women I've met. Why don't we meet at Dolores Park Saturday at 2 and I can see if you're as adventurous as I think you are. Now, this is a little bit of a challenge because you're not saying, I really like you, I want to go on a date with you. It's more like, you seem different, not you are different. So you're kind of creating a little challenge. Like, are you different? Are you adventurous? Are you this woman that I'm interested in? And now she wants to rise to the occasion by being something like that you really like, but you're not giving her that approval already, right? So you're waiting to see if you would give her that approval. If she does measure up on the date, that creates a challenge and it's super sexy. Don't message her right after the date. This can kill the mood so fast, especially if things were going well. You don't want to message her right after the date, especially not with a compliment. The only thing that you should send after the date is check to see if she got home okay. You don't want to send a message, especially like 5 minutes after the date. Oh, it was so great to meet you. You're so wonderful. Don't do it. It'll kill it. It'll kill it. I'm telling you from experience. If you need to text her at all, just text her once you think she's gotten home and make sure she made it home okay. That just shows her that you can keep her safe. Make sure you confirm the date 24 hours beforehand. You want to just make sure that she hasn't forgotten about it. Hopefully you did the TDL 3 days in advance of the date, so it wasn't so far in advance that she forgot and double books or flakes or reschedules. But make sure that you do confirm that date the day before and use commanding language when you do. Looking forward to seeing you at this location tomorrow at this time, rather than are we still on, which would be a little passive and a little desperate. Always be prepared to overcome her objections. If you give her a TDL and she can't make that time, day, or location, make sure that you have a backup plan. So anticipate what she might say. Anticipate, she could be busy that day. Maybe she doesn't like ice cream. Maybe she's lactose intolerant. Whatever it is, anticipate objections and be ready to overcome them. Don't just take no as no. You got to try 3 times. You TDL her, she says no for some reason, you try again. She says no for some reason, you try again. Don't just say, hey, when are you available? That's too passive, it's too beta, it's kind of annoying, honestly. It's much better if you just say, how about this day at this time? How about this? How about this? Okay, then after 3, well, why don't you let me know when you're available? But you want to be the man, you're going to be commanding, you know what you want, and you go after it. I hope this video helped you to learn more about the difference between being persistent and being needy. If you need more advice, head on over to emlovz.com and set up a new client session with myself or a member of my team over at emlovz.com/book. We would love to talk to you more about your dating goals, the obstacles holding you back, and create an action plan that helps you right away. Awesome. And if this video is helpful, make sure to like it, subscribe to my channel, and follow us on social media. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.